city of Abidjan played host to the 2022 Creative Africa Nexus Weekend, which is known as the CANEX Weekend, and it's a program by Afreximbank to support the creative and cultural industries here in Africa to improve the continent's share of the global creative market. Benedict Orama, the president and chairman of the board of directors of Afreximbank, set the tone for the proceedings.
Your Excellencies, honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the creative and cultural industry can be an enormous economic powerhouse for our people. The creative economy contributes about $3 trillion to the global economy and employs about 30 million people worldwide. Africa's shares of these numbers are pathetic, as we all know. Nonetheless, recent gains have been most phenomenal across Africa, predominantly precipitated by a youth bulge, a rising middle class, and advances in digital technology. Even with little policy and financing support, the African culture and creative industry has become the fastest growing industry worldwide and steadily becoming the largest employer of the continent's vast young talents. In Nigeria, for instance, the MasterCard Foundation estimates that the creative industry contributed $18 billion to the economy, nearly 5% of the GDP. It is said that in Nigeria and elsewhere in Africa, exports from the creative and cultural industry exceed combined export revenues from cocoa, rubber, and coffee. And we're only just beginning. While progress has been noticeable, much is required if Africa is to realize its full potentials. As with commodities, despite being the genesis of humankind and home to abundant, culturally diverse and celebrated talents, Africa contributes less than 1% to the global creative economy. A facilitative environment that harnesses and empowers Africa's young creative talent, creates institutional capacities, protects intellectual property rights, and improves access to finance will help transform the industry into an immense continental commercial enterprise with the ability to rule the world. CANEX offers us the platform towards achieving that goal.
Well, CANEX means a whole lot to us. As a multilateral development finance institution, we should be interested in things that foster the economic and social development of our continent. We had studied the industry, and in 2020, we launched what we call the Creative Africa Nexus, which is a branded name for our strategy intervention. So CANEX for us was supposed to, it's supposed to take advantage of and see how we can take advantage of the youth demographics on that continent. The fact that today, over 400 million people are between the ages of 15 and 25, and 35 are young people. The abundance of talent on that continent, and to see it as a way to structurally transform our continents, away from commodities, agricultural commodities, minerals, and so on and so forth. And that's why we decided to launch that strategy to intervene as a way to deal with the certain gaps that we had also seen in the creative economy, in the creative and cultural industry sector. Some of those gaps are gaps around financing, gaps around capacity and skills, gaps around lack of access to markets, trade and market information, or better put, lack of access to market, weakness in our institutions, issues around intellectual property, and that helped us to then put together a strategy that is hinged on 6 pillars.
Afreximbank has doubled their facility for the creative sector to $1 billion. The Pan-African Multilateral Trade Finance Institution also announced other interventions in the space.
In 2020, Afreximbank announced a dedicated $500 million facility to support the African creative and cultural industry under the auspices of CANEX. This facility finances all activities in the creative and cultural industry value chain, from content production to distribution. It supports the development of infrastructure for content creation, product design, distribution, logistics, acquisition of intellectual property, etc. Creative activities covered include sports, fashion, music, movies, art, including performance art, media, and technology. And because the facility is nearly used up, we are pleased to announce the doubling of its size to $1 billion today. And we implement this over the next 3 years to 2025. We hope that the experience we gained implementing the original facility will enable us to provide you with a more efficient solution that can grow your businesses further. We hope to use this facility to support our talented youth and make them useful to our society. I'm also pleased to announce that our Afreximbank board earlier this year in September approved the establishment of $100 million venture capital fund to support the creative industry and SMEs. We will contribute $25 million to the planned $100 million fund. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, monetization of creative content requires strong intellectual property protection, as well as broader awareness of creative content producers of their intellectual property rights. Owners of these rights also need to be able to negotiate their reward for the use of their rights. With the right network and partners across film, music, fashion, copyright and patent holders can negotiate pricing with their choice of platforms to license and sell IPs. Today, Africa lacks the institutions that can support the commercialization of African intellectual property rights, including non-exclusive or exclusive licensing of proprietary technologies, know-how, and processes. Afreximbank had decided to do something about it. And therefore, pleased to announce this evening that the bank has formed and registered an entity by the name CANEX Creations Incorporated, which will support the protection and commercialization of African intellectual property rights.
Afrobeats is taking the world by storm, and the original African sound has people grooving from Ouagadougou to Los Angeles. Nigerian artists are making waves internationally with key collaborations with A-listers, thereby cementing African space on the world stage. But how can we ensure that this level of success is spread across the continent?
If you look at what's happening with music, music is a prime example of what collaboration does. Because when you think about the fact that 10, 15 years ago, we had the P-Squares and co. traveling around Africa, touring, and cultural exchanges were happening. Then very soon they did a song with a South African artist. Then they did something, and then, so the minute you collaborate, you open up yourself to bigger audiences, right? Africa's next phase is going to be the collaboration of the 55 or so countries that we have, which creates a bigger market. We're talking about 1.2 billion people. Europe is not 200 million people. America is barely 350 million people. So when you multiply those premium markets, we're at least 3 times bigger than they are. And what you said earlier is very key. It's a burgeoning and growing demographic. Average age is 19 years. What do? Consume life. They're very creative and they're active. How do we make sure that they're using this brilliance to not just have fun and be engaged, but also create generational wealth?
We're definitely looking at ways in which we can collaborate with our family in the West and our family in the South who have a bit more like limelight. So like I have some very good friends in the scene, like I was telling you, like Ladipo, Shodem Camp. I played a gig with Shodem Camp in New York earlier this year. And we've been talking with Ladipo about doing stuff. But of course, there's so many artists who I want to work with. I think we should look more, we should talk to each other more. It's like, I'm discovering like a lot of people don't know, and this is something I've always said, we don't know what's happening in other countries. Like the big countries know what's happening in their countries. Like if you're from Nigeria, you know what's happening in Nigeria. But it's very rare to find someone who is like keenly listening outside of collaborations, like keenly curious about what's going on in Tanzania, what's going on in Uganda, what's going on in Kenya, Rwanda. And I think when we have that, it's easier to find collaborations because there's artists at whatever level who you can connect with because you like their sound, not because they're the most popular artist.
I'm a musician, but also a businesswoman. And what I believe is that for every business, when there starts to be some kind of influx of investors or interest from the outside world that's outside your community, it means that you are doing something good. So it's the influx of the attention that's on Africa right now with Afrobeats and everything that's going on. Is it a plus? Yes, it's a huge plus. Is it an opportunity? Yes, it's a big opportunity for both parties. Is it to our advantage? My advantage as an artist. Being an artist is beyond just recording music. There's an entire ecosystem behind it. And I think those are, in the ecosystem, there are different segments, and those are different departments that need to be developed a little more so that we can really demand and command what we deserve in the music industry. An example of that would be, you ask whether the artists, the producers, the songwriters, if they are getting what they truly deserve. It's only a matter of time, but I think we as Africans need to develop our actual structure so that when the investors and when the outside world want to invest in what we are doing so easily and naturally, it would also benefit us in the long run, not just for when the music is hot or when it's there.
I love African music. That's why I got into the business in the first place. I'm not a big fan of that word Afrobeats, by the way. I don't like it but it's what has put African music in the shop window. I see Africa as one big boundaryless, entity where we can thrive, where our music can travel amongst ourselves and travel around the world. We're all excited. When I saw the theme for this panel, which was African Music Limitless, I was excited. Okay, limitless, yes, to a certain degree. And it could be, and it will be, if we put certain things in place. We have to put certain things in place to make it happen. Number one, look at where we are now. We have a trickle. A few artists are making it globally. Your Burna Boys, your Fally Ipupas, Davido, Wizkid, Yemi Alade, Tiwa Savage. You have some artists from different regions, Maitre Games, Daju, sold out concerts at the stadium in Paris, sold out concerts at Madison Square Garden, O2 Arena. But that is not enough. We need to create a system, a structure, architecture that enables us to create a pipeline where more of those kind of people can come through, not just a trickle. And then we need to have ownership. Ownership, if African music is going to be sustainable and limitless, we have to have our own structure. We have to own that structure.
We're talking about globalization of our music, globalization of our movies. And as I listen to the Minister for Sports for Kenya talking about Africans playing for white countries, defeating African countries, I can relate to the pain, but I can understand the reason why. Let's go back to music. The reason Africans can excel in music and dominate the world, especially Nigerians, is because you can close your eyes and listen. And when you close your eyes and listen, you're no longer a racist, you're no longer a religious bigot. All you want to do is dance, or you want to move, you want to gyrate. So music knows no color.
I think a platform like this, like CANEX, is absolutely necessary. Most government and most people don't really realize the importance of investing in creative industries. Not only it's a business, but it has also an amplification impact on the entire economy, and also on the mindset, the narrative, the image, on this idea of soft power. So I think that's a priority to be strong and creative in Africa. It is a complex industry. Within the creative industry, we've got multiple industries, from producing content to monetization of content, rights, technology, finance, building the capacity of the people, and also how do you make sure that you've got the good creators, and you go from music, you go to cinemas, to movies, theaters, a lot of things. So obviously, you need to have priorities. Not every country will be in a position to build the entire value chain of creative industries. You've got already some kind of pillars, like the Nollywood industry in Nigeria, or the music industry in South Africa and Ivory Coast. Also, there's a strong industry of producing series. So what is also very important is what type of narrative should we have? Let's take the example of Nollywood. Great industry, but the impact of this industry is so strong that now it shapes the mindset of the people. So it's very important for all creators, for all writers, to know that they've got an impact. When they write and when they want to really get into the mind of the people, they must know that this has also some consequences. So part of the thing that we have to do is to build the industry as an economy, but also to build the narrative to make sure that we bring the right message for the future of Africa.
The masterclasses were a significant part of the weekend, where established professionals in their fields inspired and shared their knowledge with Africa's young creatives.
First, you have to know what you like to do and love your work. Decide which profession you are to take, but you can try first. Because sometimes it came to your mind and you don't do it. Do it and try. And then when you decided about go and learn and be creative. Potential, I think Africa is, creativity and crafts and art is very still vivid, and still people use it. And there is a lot of talent here for fashion, designers, woodwork, straw work, art. I think there is a big possibility of taking this and modernize it and make something out modern. That's and we can explore and we can export it to the world and see what's the African art.
CANEX is one of the greatest things that has happened to art this year, and I am praying that it continues to happen to enlighten the younger people who are coming up, and to encourage even the older ones, to encourage the younger ones to grow. And for the art in Africa to go to a point whereby it becomes something that is recognizable all over the world, that can give it strength to grow, give it economic sense, enlarge its personality, and put us on top of the world.
A lot of times in Africa, we make the assumptions that for fashion to be what fashion is, it has to be high fashion. African fabric, textiles, the way they are made, the weaving and all of that already is high fashion. But how do we make it ready to wear? How do we commercialize that, still staying authentic? How do we get our products be in a way that they are seamless? They don't feel too heavy. They correspond with our seasons, Especially for us abroad, we have 2 seasons. Unlike in Africa, where clothes can go year-round without you necessarily changing it, like, oh, this is for this season or that season. So we have to be able to make products that are seamless, products that cut across. If you're in Africa and you want to make products that would sell in Paris for the winter, you have to be mindful of the kind of texture of fabrics that you use. And one thing I tell designers is our kente, bogolan, all of those heavy, they are perfect fabrics for the winter season in America. And then we can use our prints, the wax, the tie and dye, the indigo and all of that to do amazing summer stuff. So for me, what I would say is for us to be able to cut across the market, we need to be able to get products which, like he said, authentic. They have a reflection of who we are or what we stand for, but they are done in a way that they are tasteful and that can cut across to any consumer.
African movies and documentaries play a huge role in exporting our cultures to the world. But as we tell our own stories, how can we also improve the ecosystem for creatives in Africa?
As creatives, we have transcended borders and our influence is truly global. However, the creative industry remains fragmented, segmented, and unable to scale, at least not in terms of revenues. Africa has a profound, beautiful, and influential cultural legacy, a cultural legacy that can be worth trillions. Yet, Africa's share of it is only 1%. And this is where we have the possibility of having the greatest impact. As critical stakeholders involved in the cultural and creative industry, CCIs, we must actively engage on how we leverage or change the existing structures to realize a dynamic creative ecosystem in Africa. By positioning creatives and the creative economy at the center of Africa's development agenda, we set the table for transformational shifts in the continent's ability to create new roles and opportunities for the youth that make up over 60% of its population. It also creates an intentional approach to altering negative narratives often attributed to the continent.
We cherish platforms such as CANEX because they give expression to the policies that the African Union develops. It really promotes the visibility and the profile of the creative sector on the continent. So that's why since 2020, the African Union has been engaged with the Afreximbank in order to promote the development of the creative sector in Africa. Basically, the revised plan of action on the African cultural and creative industries was concluded in 2020. There was a validation workshop done by member states in March 2021. And now we are awaiting the Conference of Ministers of Youth, Culture and Sport to finally endorse this plan. The revised plan mainly looks at key areas for development of the creative economy on the continent, which include the access to markets, infrastructure development, capacity building of creatives, as well as intellectual property rights. These were some of the areas which were not contained in the earlier plan. So the sector requested the AU to make this revision, and we've finalized it, and we hope it will really serve as a guide for member states to have strong and implementable policies at national level so that the sector can grow and provide the contribution to the economy of the continent.
Very much necessary, particularly at this time, because they stand like an enabler. They are the catalyst for the growth of the huge film industry in Africa. So when we attend CANEX and being sponsored by CANEX, it gives the opportunity for us to come up with policy, opinion, positions, which if gathered together and escalated by CANEX as an intermediary between filmmakers and government agencies of film in the various African countries, we can see the processes of film development move rapidly down the road.
So CANEX, this is the second time we're participating. The first time was last year when it was held in Durban with the Intra-African Trade Fair. And I think with the CANEX Weekend, what's so fantastic about it is how it's focused on the creative industries, which need more ventilation in terms of the importance and their contribution to economies across the continent. So I think it's a fantastic platform because it really does unite African countries. I think if the creative industries across many different African countries are really to elevate their importance in terms of how crucial they are to different national agendas, the best way to do that is through cross-border collaboration. So CANEX is fantastic for that. It's a great meeting area for different parties from different countries to converge with their thinking and obviously sign on the dotted line where necessary, but more than anything else, have the crucial and important conversations that they're supposed to have. So I think it's a brilliant platform.
For documentaries, I think we are utilizing all opportunities to tell the African story. So CANEX can be a platform for us to tell African stories. And as a Pan-African fund, we make sure that everyone has access to resources or to platforms. So CANEX is an avenue for us. So Documentary Africa is a Pan-African film fund that aims to support African documentary filmmakers and producers to tell African stories through the African lens. For a very long time, we've had so many people tell our stories. I think it's about time that we told our own stories.
Hotel in Abidjan was a beehive of activity as the 75 exhibitors wowed participants with the quality of their wares.
Thank you. My name is Gloria Kamanzu Wizera. I'm the CEO and founder of Glow Creation Limited. It's based in Rwanda. We are a textile printing company. We provide textile printed and we provide home accessories products. This kind of platform, it's a good platform to connect with potential buyers, but even potential partners, because in a kind of work that we do, we need different kinds of partners. It's not only buyers, but even we need those who will be funding our work.
My name is Rami, and I'm the creative director and founder of Rami RTW. I came to CANEX to come and network of young African talents and creatives over here to also look for investors to come and invest in my work. I advise young creatives that you should start from Africa, stay African, and be proud of being African, because we are elevating to a different level. We are elevating to a different level over here, and this is the best time to start and to put your product out there.
My name is Eddie. I'm a movie producer entrepreneur. The company is Constellation Entertainment. We are a young company. So we are based in US, and we produce some movie contents in Africa. So during the last year, we did 3 movie production ready to release. And next month we have the first movie, Laksulu, the Highway, produced in Cameroon last summer. And we have also a second production, Du Rouge au Noir, produced last summer in Cameroon. So now we are here in Abidjan to make some connection, build a network, a big network, because we need to have some partnership, financial partnership, production connection to produce first, and in the second time is to build a professional studio in Cameroon, because there in Cameroon there is not movie production studio like Nigeria or South Africa, and this is one of the big deals we have to do if we want to grow.
Skill acquisition is critical if Africans are to build capacity in the creative industry. The executive chairman and co-founder of Trace, Olivier Lauchers, shares more insights on the Trace Academy. We will also hear from one of the partners on the skills acquisition drive, Egyptian jewelry maker Aza Fami.
80% of young people will not do any higher education after 16, 17, 18 years old. So these people represent a few 100 million people. They have nothing to really build their professional life. So we decided to create a free platform where we will bring them courses about jobs, courses about entrepreneurship, and courses about soft skills. And then we connect these courses to employability, whether it's bursaries, whether it's incubators for entrepreneurs, whether it's jobs with companies that will connect with the best learners. So Trace Academy is about that. It's a free online platform. You can download it on Google, on the App Store, on the Huawei also gallery. And its aim is to, in fact, empower 25 million young people within the coming years.
How do you plan to collaborate and work with other professionals in the field to ensure that this dream is actualized?
I think we are doing that already, because we are not experts in everything. So what we do, we collaborate with industry experts. For instance, L'Oréal for cosmetic, or Afreximbank for banks, or MasterCard for financial inclusion. So we take the expertise from the best, and then with our pedagogical engineers, with our storytellers, with our producers, we transform this expertise into audiovisual content, and we bring this audiovisual content into short, videos, so that we can provide a very engaging, very compelling learning experience. And then we connect our partners to the platform to offer all these opportunities that I mentioned. So it's a very inclusive platform where we need partners from the government, from the private sector. Artists also are part of the game. Please tell us why Afreximbank decided to focus effort on resources on this particular project.
No, that's because we went here yesterday. I spent a lot of time. I actually talked about it yesterday, this partnership and efforts to support capacity building, which is one of the gaps we identified in the creative industry. And of course, as Afami is a long-standing jeweler, well known in Africa, in North Africa, in Egypt, where they're headquartered, and also in Europe. We think that she has a lot of experience that we can pass down to the younger generation, and of course to create capacity in different value chains of the creative industry. So we're big on capacity building. We think there are gaps there, and that's one of the things that Afreximbank has tried to address, the capacity, skills, knowledge gap.
We had chosen the best of the best, and with Trace created tailor-made online classes that teach the foundation skill needed to become a jewelry maker. We can't wait for all this to take these courses to follow their passion, pursue their dreams, and to help bringing their design to life. I'd like to thank Trace for this support, and CANEX for having us and being so welcoming. Finally, I would also like to thank our partner, the African Export Bank, for helping bringing this vision to me. This is only the beginning, and we look forward to working on many different projects in the future that show the beauty of crafts in Africa. Thank you.
For young Africans with aspirations to make it in the creative industry, it is important to have role models that are already blazing the trail. This is why at the CANEX Weekend, the segment called the When Giants Speak resonated with Africa's burgeoning young population. Chimamanda Adichie and Idris Elba had some gems to share.
The way we think about education on our continent is something we need to change, where this feeling that you focus on one thing and one thing only. We have to be more holistic in our thinking. I think that an engineer needs literature. I think a doctor needs music.
Stories, yeah, music.
Story. It makes us more rounded people.
More mature in my career as an actor, I decided to branch off into other areas of interest. And, honestly, for me, it has been the most fulfilling part of being an actor. I'm a good actor, I should say. I'm considered, thank you. I'm considered a good actor because I try to live my life as fully as I can be. I think it's important that no matter what you do, try to do other things, because it makes what you do as a focus even better. So that's where the DJing, the music, the spokesperson, the philanthropic efforts. Did you guys know that I'm an artist? I paint. Because I'm lying, that's why I don't do that as well. But, you know, for me, it is important to have a diversity of interests because, again, it makes you reflect on what your main focus in a different way.
I caught up with Idris Elba backstage, and he also had even more nuggets up his sleeves.
I mean, look, you know, these are forums that there is a lot of goodwill for African creatives, where people can share stories, can share ideas, and learn, okay? These forums are incredibly important to the growth of African narratives, creatives, filmmakers, stories, because it's a university. And for me to be here, this is my first time at CANEX. I feel very honored. And I hope that what I had to share was, you know, helpful for those.
Because it is important for Africans, actors like yourself of African heritage, to push that Africanness out there, because it helps, like I said, the younger people to inspire and to dream. And I'd like you to speak to collaborative efforts that you think are possible between Hollywood and the industry here.
Look, I think, you know, the ways to success, of course, collaborative efforts with Hollywood is one of them, but strengthening our own. When they say, you know, put your own mask on before you put the other person's mask on, that's because you're no good to anyone else if you're not strong, right? So for me, the collaborative effort starts when you strengthen your own house. You know, we should be supporting young creatives to tell narratives before we expect to collaborate anywhere else in the world. That's a really important factor. I'm very proud of Nollywood, very proud of the African film industry. It creates $5 billion, but that's a small portion compared to the rest of the world. So we can strengthen it and then look at collaboration around the world.
As the weekend grinds to a close, we get the closing remarks from Afreximbank's Kanoyo Awani and Cote d'Ivoire's Minister of Culture, Francoise Remarque.
28 registrations. We have participants over the 3 days at 2,800 participants. We set out to have 50 exhibitors, and the reason we had to now develop a marquee outside was because as the exhibitors were coming, we realized that we were going to exceed 50 exhibitors, and we had 75 exhibitors. And in terms of deals that we originated, many of you visited us in the deal room. Many times the Afreximbank staff were here, and also some other financial institutions also. We were actually, receiving proposals for financing. And we had a total of deals that we originated through this that have the prospect of being advanced at $412 million US. We were represented here from 60 countries from Africa and beyond. We had 94 speakers. The CANEX Music Factory, which is where we used to curate music. We had 256 artists come to the music factory to produce music. Out of those 256 that visited the music factory, so there was so much happening all around here. 23 songs were recorded and stand a chance of being published. Remember, capacity building is one of also those things that we try to do to build skills in the sector. We had 13 masterclasses, 13 panels and side chats, and of course we had 17 live performances. I know very well that's the report, and I think we've done very well, and we can do another, give ourselves a round of applause.
I will, on behalf of the President of the Republic of Cote d'Ivoire, His Excellency Alassane Ouattara, and the head of the government, the Honorable Patrick Achi, I will ask you, dear CANEX attendees, to show to the report, our report, and our gratefulness to the presidents of Afreximbank for having given the opportunity to allow those very good fructuous, discussion. Thank you to all of you. to you particularly for all the teams. I know it wasn't that easy and obvious. We had some, challenges, things that were not perfect, and I would like to apologize for that. But you did a tremendous work, and you demonstrated what Afreximbank may represent, what a bank may represent working for the development. You demonstrated the know-how, and your team work a lot. And then please show them individually our regards and our commitment. A round of applause for all of them.
The doubling of Afreximbank's facility for the creative sector to $1 billion, as well as the board's approval of the $100 million venture capital fund for the creative industry, will add some needed traction to improve Africa's share of the global creative space. Other interventions, like the formation of the CANEX Creations Incorporated to safeguard intellectual property and the Pan-African Fashion Alliance, will fortify Africa further. I'm Kenneth Igbomor. Thank you so much for watching.